Hello, Dan here. Today I'm going to read a short story from Women Invent the Future, which is a science fiction anthology put together by Everyone. It's really good. It's full of really good stories. I'm going to read a story called There Are Wolves in These Woods by Cassandra Kaur. So, let's go. There are wolves in these woods. There have always been wolves in these woods. Celine looks him over, rakes her eyes down from the tip of his head to the toes of his boots. His hair is bramble and blackberries, pitch dark, save for where silver has rooted itself at his temples, a gilding of hoarfrost in the wide open mouth of the waiting woods. When he smiles, even a child can see how poorly the expression fits. Those lips should have been married to a snarl, that throat wedded to a bark or a growl or a howl, something stalking through the shive light of the old country, something sleek and sure and hungry. And oh, he's hungry. She can tell. Her fingers skip to the nodule lodged in her temple. Celine could have sprung for better, but intracranial surgery was 200 more than strictly necessary. She'd never had aspirations towards undercuts or anything else that would bear the peripheral, so why bother? And besides, the device began seeping mercury. This way at least she'd been able to divine the damage before it's too late. The restaurant is small and sweltering. Crystal sweats in tangles from the velvet roofing the ceiling. Church glass breaks the light into honeyed hues of apricot, rust and cider, bloodies it at angles. The abattoir quality is intentional. The maitre d' told them it was meant to evoke sympathy for the meat they'd plate on bone china and black ceramic. A satirical pretension, of course. The establishment is innocent of authentic animal protein, but people will pay extra to wallow in consequence-free scandal where they can. Jasmine the Badass 450. Can you get some of his spit? Meet your beast. Christ, Mika, wouldn't a kiss be kind of sending a wrong message? Fuck your pink. Not if he was a gentleman, it wouldn't. Cat mouse. But you know he's an asshole. Not your Asian fantasy. Yeah, he's got that look. Anyway, I wasn't angling for you to kiss him. Just grab his glass. How? Her fingers twitch a message across her knee. Dermal implants keyed to the staccato shorthand for her elected cipher. Caution is mandatory. In an epoch where endorphins are password protected and love itself is programmable, opt in unless indicated otherwise. It is hard to trust. Back in the 21st century, there'd been a push to standardise access to sex, terrorist action under the banner of enforced male virginity, and some corporations had caved, nickel and dimed the resentful pursuant, then outfitted them with an armoury of augmentations. Nothing illegal, no sir, just tooltips for three-dimensional reality, matrices of pheromone readers, mimicry software, sub-vocalisation amplifiers, whatever they needed to get ahead in the war of the sexes. So women pushed back. Not your Asian fantasy. Here, pass motor function for a second. Authentication protocol is established. A frisson of kaffir lime and cardamom, top notes of neon pink, an ironic, aesthetic, girl power personified, and the after-image of fairy lights on a languid summer night. More than the sensuality of its presentation, Celine appreciates the commitment to security. Among other details, there is a triptych of biosignatures in accompaniment, each mapped to the sender's respective genomes, government verifiable and publicly accessible. If any of this is treachery, her lawyers would be able to strip them of everything, including the civil rights of their entire genealogy, past, present and probable. She lets go. Her overlay first apertures to white before the glare recedes, winnowed down to a mottling of stars, like someone had strung Christmas lights over her vision. Somatosensory feedback dulls to a grey wash. Like a princess in her tower, Celine now observes the world at a remove, unable to taste or touch or feel the cold of her companion's wine glass under fingers made deft by external control. There we go. Celine's thumb traces the monogram of the man's mouth, frosted and faded from repeated sips of the dry red wine. Subdermal wetware immediately activates, rushing to dissect genetic data. Through it all, Celine sits, riveted by the gross mortality of the man's appearance. Here an eyelid crenellated unflatteringly, here his mouth slumps, here and here she sees where liver spots might eventually constellate, where skin might wattle. Old waits patient as a wolf. You're not satisfied with your glass? Celine's body tips into a forward motion, a smile on the brink of being. Asshole, please. He's such a sleaze. Not your Asian fantasy. God, I wonder how many women he's picked up with that line. Lily White Lamb. No criminal record, though. Fuck your pink. Hey, Lily. Love the username. Lol. Celine pricks a thought on the command line and her body sags, free fall back into hands, like it has been given up to the act of waiting to be woken. When she shutters her eyes, she finds them parched. The other person doesn't blink half as much. I wanted to see if yours was crystal or glass. He cocks his head like a hound. In the owl light of the restaurant, soft as dawn closing its teeth over the taiga, his eyes are black, not even the umber she sometimes thinks it is, not gold, only black. And again Celine thinks of wolves in the winter. Wolves in waiting, or maybe just one wolf circling closer, while girls in red make a killing shoot of their bodies, their eyes bright as axes. There are better ways to get closer. His voice, throaty, accented, in that way that would make her laugh, if it wasn't so subtle, the Slavic lilt, lean enough to forgive, if that's what you're angling for. Asshole, please. Sleaze. Not your Asian fantasy. Sleaze. Lily White Lamb. Sleaze. Cat Mouse. Sleaze. Meet your beast. Why can't I like more than once? I'm not angling for anything. Celine leans back, arms crossed. The first of the hors d'oeuvres arrives. Folds of synthetic wagyu served with salts. Fat striations pale as tendon. This is followed by cuts of fatty tuna, veal carpaccio, sweet marrow roasted in 3D printed calcium. Every last mouthful reverse engineered from hours of more morally suspect establishments. They eat, without conversation, perfunctory, their silence a payment to the gods of modern gastronomy. The tasting menu develops in intensity, nearly profane in its inventiveness. Snail caviar, blood pudding with chicory relish, smoked maple and buttermilk fried dough heart, eel confit, devilled black truffle cooked down to gleaming jet black confections. Fuck your pink. OMG, put it in my mouth. So Celine does. There are women in these woods too. There have always been women in these woods. For as long as there have been wolves, have been men who are both, there have been women, panting through the tree line as the sun thins to a wedding band. As the light coughs and dies, they begin to stagger. They fall like sheaves of corn, and the wind, it howls like something old and cruel and hungry. Once there was always only ever one ending, no happily ever after, just a mouth, black as the woods, and bodies in the snow, supine and still. But no story stays static. There are women in these woods. These days there are huntswomen too. Not your Asian fantasy. Fuck me, that's good. Meet your beast. I regret not paying for the VIP tier. Fuck your pink. Your rig doesn't have any esters though. Cat Mouse. I want to point out the juxtapositioning of your handle and your words here, not your Asian fantasy. Not your Asian fantasy. Lol, yeah, I realised. What are you thinking? The spindle connection retreats. She stares, mouth rucked, throws back the sight of him like a shot someone else had bought straight down, like his 2 fingers of bad whiskey, cheaper than talk, black leather and lashes so long she knows he's never had to flirt with Lina. Shoulders you'd take at least a day to walk. Pretty has it easy, doesn't it? Celine can tell he knows, sees it in his posture, that know-it-all, love them all, strutting behind even his smallest motion. You always take good looking in good faith. At least you used to. Red's Riding isn't the cheapest app, but every woman has a subscription. Mothers pass down membership to their daughters like titles. Sisters come together and friends raise hell, and crowdfunding campaigns, all to keep their girls safe. Celine was, still is, titillated by the software's origin story. For a while, Red's Riding played coquette with the wrong side of legal, a mod carved from yet another API from the swipe right titans. But this one had been bad for business. This one reached deep into business to uproot the liars, a harvest of con men and call-you-maybes to salt and let wither in the sun. The women loved it. Red's Riding was revolutionary. It didn't so much shake up the playing field as shake loose the world. Before, it was guesswork and guard work, second-hand will-he's and why did he's, pre-date rituals consisting of checking in and checking out the adversary through third-party services. Red's Riding changed all that. The players and the paying customers grew angry, of course. Where was the sport in this? Where was the game? What was the point of paying those annual fees if the girls wouldn't behave? If they wouldn't play by the rules? If they wouldn't place their throats on the altars and wait? So court orders came marching and Red's Riding went down, still as corpses laid to rest in the frost. Roots grown deep have a way of coming back though, and Red's Riding soon rose from the grave with a smile. Tell me your worst story. Celine dabs at the corner of her mouth with her napkin, folds it in half and then quarters. She does not blink, holds him in the jaws of her regard. Come on. Worst story. He mirrors her. The onslaught of courses have given way to a lull, a lacuna with which they've been told to meditate. Music snakes through the air, Sino-jazz from the 2030s. A waiter, collared and corseted in Vanta black, exchanges their used plates for white bowls. She swings Celine a look, and enough of a smile to make her wonder if their server's another Red. That seems counterproductive, doesn't it? You can tell a lot about a person from the way they'd fucked up. Fucked up, huh? He feels his way through the consonants, their roughness, tongue stroked across all the right places, lingering in all the wrong spaces, so she can't help but know what he's thinking. But no offence, none meant, at least. Like everything else, this is just another game. Meet your beast, asshole. Cat mouse, can he be any more subtle, lol? Not your Asian fantasy. So hey, ask him about his marriage. From what it looks like, boy's divorce isn't over yet. There's something in the way his gaze leans on her, the weight of it that makes her want to wait. Celine would gnaw loose her right arm to see him stagger, slip, trip on that smile halfway into his next play. Soon, she hazards, I assume you've fucked up at least once in your life. Otherwise you wouldn't be talking to me. I feel like you may be too hard on yourself. Celine allows her teeth to show. Because you feel like that might be your job? Perhaps. They clink glasses, and Celine drains hers in a gulp, gaze lidded, interface overlaid with 1,000 data points. In the dim light, the wine's the same dusky, sticky red of menstrual blood. Through the crack in her eyelids she reads them all, each as solemn as last rites. No criminal records, at least, no rumour of domestic battery, no misdemeanours, nothing more salacious than 2 charges of drunk driving. His personal testimonies, however, those were interesting. Not your Asian fantasy. Told you. How about I make it a little easier? She decants the responsibility of balance to one of the watching Reds. Crowd-sourced motor controls, better than any prince's dowry. Tell me about how your marriage ended. There are wolves and women in these woods. Sometimes the story forgets which is which. Recently. It ended recently. Caution paces through his voice, its belly kept low to the ground. Why? Dessert comes. A pageant of candied sweetbreads. Ice cream wrung from fresh lymph. All still fake, they're assured. Nonetheless, Celine wonders. Even under the buckwheat honey, the chocolate, the wild Swedish strawberries, sour and red as a heart, there is a pungence to the offal, a rust-water quality to their creme brulee which lingers thick as sap or semen. He picks listlessly through the carnivore desserts, too watchful now for pleasures, and Celine smiles. Like I said, you can tell a lot from someone's mistakes. Custard melts to a marrow sweetness on her tongue. Besides, you've got no ends of stories from me. I don't think I know you well enough yet. Fuck your pink. Here it comes. Meet your beast. Look, if he gets violent, at least two of us are hanging around here. Just scream Willykins. Cat mouse. The fuck? Meet your beast. Safe word? I don't know. Not your Asian fantasy. Shut up and let her focus. Celine takes up her axe, takes the dialogue apart with a grin, body poured into the action, a fork cocked at the man like a gun. But you looking like you wanted to eat me up was all right? She says it too loud. Celine no longer cares though. Her vision lights up with reds at the ready, 4, 5, 6, a whole fleet, better than any panic button, better than any plug-in vowing combat expertise, better than sex, better than hanging on too little, too late. Celine would have much preferred the more decadent outcome, but one evening shouldn't beggar a woman of choice. You don't make it seem unwelcomed. A warning in his phrasing, the denouement of his interest. He sets his cutlery down. It wasn't. Celine glances stage right and then lets her eyes flit back. But I didn't have you pegged for a jerk then. Oh? You never told your wife about that weekend fling, did you? A palm is brought down hard enough to make the tableware shake. Why the fuck do you know about this? No, wait, I see. You're one of those? He drags out the word like a garland of meat. I am putting nothing on public record. Oh, that was her. I'm putting nothing on public record. Was it that bitch? He says, hardly thinking for a second how he'd put his head in the trap, how the use of that word was enough to incriminate, its trembling violence, the raw slap of the sound. Bitch. Celine wrungs her tongue over her teeth. Elsewhere, the waiters come together murmuring, having taken an interest in the tableau, still unable to tell which is the wolf and which is the woodsman, or if there remains any distance between the two. She pitches her voice low. Stories like this don't need attribution. I deserve to know. No, Celine raises a finger. You don't. You signed away that right when you decided to be an asshole. By the way, great job with those next two relationships. I don't agree that it's cheating, but I understand why you might feel that way. Classy. He stands then. I do not have to be subject to your abuses. You have a good night. Pay for your own goddamn dinner. The waitress from earlier appears as though invoked by sorcery, smile pristinely plastic, a hand rested on the knob of his elbow. I'm afraid we'll still have to charge you for your miscellaneous expenses, sir. Charge me? For what? Interrupting the piece. The maitre d' is long and lithe, and unsubtle in his disapproval, expression tepid. Like his colleague, he does not so much arrive at the scene as he does manifest. The diners here do not just pay for the food, they pay for the pleasure of the experience, and you have cost them that experience. Some more than others, but we must find some way to finance their grievances. And more importantly, I believe we asked you to sign a waiver. Fuck your pink? Yeah, the waitress undoes her earrings. Hair that had arrowed straight to the small of her back transforms, coiling into neon curlicues of agate, teal, and tin. She cards long fingers through the waves. To be fair, I did have pink hair once, so that was kind of weirdly ironic for a while yet. Celine studies the restaurant. Freed of its mood lighting, it becomes more palatable, less pretension, more art installation. I'm not judging. I know. The waitress, Amira she said her name was, stretches a yawn banked behind her palm. But anxiety and everything, you know. Hey, we broke bread together. You ate of my chemical receptors. Celine brings her gaze back to the other woman. Elevator music floats through the air. At last, there are no wolves, only women in repose, lounging in the halogen-shot quiet. I think that makes us sisters or something. Yeah. Amira tosses her a can of iced coffee, the aluminium still wisping steam. Sorry about your date. A shrug. Could have gone worse. Could have gone home with him. I mean, he was good looking, but he was also a bona fide ass. Another loose-shouldered ripple of her shoulders. Celine's expression far from contrite. I don't like to waste time. I don't know. Pick an appropriate complaint. Seriously, though. I'm glad it didn't turn out to be anything. Guess the morning after would have been a little awkward. Celine kicks her feet up, onto the edge of the table, tilts her chair back onto two legs. Outside, the rain makes an oil painting of the city, nearly rococo in its effulgence. Every billboard remade into hieroglyphs for the future. Coffee and company in hand, Celine finds it brighter than she'd expected. Okay, so, what's good to eat around here? What? That's not, fancy bullshit that came out of a lab. Amira laughs, and it is rich and nectared and golden, no guile, nothing but joy, nothing but the easy happiness of sitting with kin. I know a diner nearby. That sounds prospective. I'm told, and don't quote me on this, that it has pretty good burgers. What are the milkshakes like? Fucking decadent. I'm in. Let's go. There are women in these woods. These days they keep the woods free of wolves. The end. That was... There Are Wolves in These Woods by Cassandra Core. And the book it's from is Women Invent the Future, a science fiction anthology, stories by and about women. And it's published by Everyone.